When I booked my flight for Vancouver, I thought I knew exactly why I was going. I thought I needed a vacation. I thought I needed a change of scenery. I thought I needed to get away for a few days. But somewhere between the flights, the ferry rides, the dinners around the table, and the quiet moments looking out at the ocean, I realized I had been looking for the wrong thing. I didn't need a vacation. I needed to remember what it felt like to simply enjoy my life again. This past year has challenged me in ways I never expected. Like so many of us, I got caught in survival mode. There were responsibilities to juggle, decisions to make, people I love who needed me, a business to run, a home to take care of, days where I was so focused on getting through everything that I stopped asking myself one very important question. What am I building all of this for? Last episode, we talked about building a business that supports your life. But after coming home from Vancouver, I realized there's another question we have to ask ourselves. What kind of life are we trying to build? Because if we're honest, most of us don't wake up one day and suddenly lose ourselves. It happens slowly. One busy week becomes one busy month. One busy month becomes one busy year. Before you know it, you're crossing things off your to-do list. But you've stopped making time for the people who make you laugh the hardest, the conversations that fill your cup, the quiet moments that remind you who you are outside of your work. I didn't realize how much I missed those things until I found them again. And that's what I want to talk about today. Not just about Vancouver, but about what that trip quietly taught me. About friendship, about success, and slowing down, and about rebuilding differently. Hey beauty, welcome back to Behind the Lash with Tammy. If you're listening for the first time, my name is Tammy and I'm so grateful you're here. This has been such a meaningful season. When I started recording season 2, I honestly wasn't sure where it was going to lead. I just knew I wanted these conversations to be more honest, less about having all the answers and more about sharing what I was learning as I was living it. Looking back now, I realize every episode has been connected. We talked about what happens when life doesn't go according to plan. We talked about the pressure to keep going even when you're exhausted. We talked about choosing less instead of constantly chasing more. We talked about letting go of the version of ourselves that no longer fits. And in the last episode, we talked about building a business that supports your life instead of a life that revolves around your business. But after taking some time away, I realized that building a business differently is only part of the story. Because once you create that space, you have to decide what you're going to fill it with. That's the part no one really talks about. It's one thing to slow down. It's another thing to rediscover what actually brings you joy. Before we dive into today's episode, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for spending part of your day with me, whether you're driving to work, walking your dog, folding laundry, getting ready for a client, or simply taking a few quiet moments for yourself. There are so many podcasts you could be listening to, and the fact that you've chosen to spend this time with me is something I'll never take for granted. Over the past 2 seasons, so many of you have reached out with messages that have truly stayed with me. You've shared your stories, your struggles, your dreams, and the moments when something I said made you feel a little less alone. I don't know if creators always realize the impact their work has while they're making it, but every message reminded me that these conversations mattered. And if this does end up being the last episode for a little while, or even longer than that, I just want you to know how incredibly grateful I am that we found each other. You've been part of this journey too. So let me tell you why I ended up in Vancouver. On the surface, it looked like I was taking a vacation. And yes, I was definitely ready for a change of scenery. But if I'm honest, Vancouver wasn't really the reason I booked the trip. The real reason was 2 people I love very much. My friends Yemi and Lily. They're sisters, and during the pandemic, they both moved from Ontario to British Columbia. Over the past few years, we've only managed to see each other a couple of times when they came back to visit. We'd go out for dinner, catch up on life, promised we'd see each other again soon, and then life would get busy again. I'm sure a lot of you know exactly what that's like. You have people you care deeply about, but somehow months turn into years before you realize how long it's been. This past year especially, life has felt very full. There have been seasons where I was simply trying to keep up with everything that needed my attention, and somewhere along the way, I realized something. I didn't just miss my friends. I missed being with my friends. Those are two very different things. I miss the conversations that don't have a time limit. I miss laughing until your stomach hurts over something completely ridiculous. I miss sitting around a table with nowhere else to be. I missed feeling completely myself. So one day I stopped saying, we should really plan a trip someday, and I booked the flight. Looking back now, I'm so grateful I did. Because if I had waited until life slowed down, I'm not sure it ever would have happened. Isn't that funny? We tell ourselves we'll make time for the people we love after things settle down. After work gets less busy, after the kids are older, after this season passes. But life has a way of replacing one busy season with another. And before you know it, you've spent years waiting for the perfect time. This trip reminded me that sometimes you have to create the time. Not because it's convenient, but because the people you love are worth making the effort for. You know what surprised me the most? I thought the highlights of the trip would be the places we visited, the gardens, the ocean, the ferry rides, the beautiful scenery that British Columbia is famous for. Those things were wonderful. But when I think back on the trip now, those aren't the moments that come to mind first. The moments I remember most happened around a dinner table. I think my favorite night of the whole trip was Friday night. By then, I'd already spent several days with Yemi and Lily. After a day of sightseeing, we came back and Lily spent the evening making an incredible dinner. There was grilled beef, grilled pork, grilled chicken, homemade spring rolls, and Yemi had made the tabbouleh that I absolutely love. Honestly, by that point, I already knew I wasn't leaving British Columbia hungry. One thing you'll quickly learn if you ever spend time with Yemi and Lily, you're never going to leave hungry. I don't know how many meals we had that week, but by the end, I was convinced they made it their personal mission to make sure I flew back to Ontario at least 10 pounds heavier. Every time I thought there's absolutely no way I can eat another bite, someone would smile and say, wait, save room for dessert. By the end of the trip, I was pretty sure my suitcase wasn't the only thing that was heavier. We all settled around the dinner table. Earlier in the week, we had some really meaningful conversations. We talked about life. We talked about family. We talked about Alexis and what it's really like advocating for your child. Those conversations meant so much to me. But Friday night was pure joy. One funny story reminded someone of another funny story. Someone would interrupt halfway through, then someone else would jump in with their version. Before we knew it, we were all laughing again. I honestly can't remember the last time I laughed that hard. The kind of laughter where your cheeks hurt, where your stomach hurts, where you can't even finish your sentence because you're laughing too much. I remember looking around that table and thinking, this is what I'd been missing. Looking back now, I don't think it was really about the food. It was about how Yemi and Lily love people. Cooking is their love language. Every meal they prepared was their way of saying, we're so happy you're here, without ever having to say the words. And I don't think I realized how much I needed that. Being cared for like that touched me more deeply than I expected. Growing up as the eldest daughter, I learned very early to notice what everyone else needed, to help, to take care of people. Those values shaped who I am, and I'm grateful for them. But somewhere along the way, I became much more comfortable giving care than receiving it. That week, my friends wouldn't let me be the one taking care of everyone else. They took care of me. And I didn't realize how unfamiliar that felt. Not uncomfortable, just unfamiliar. But here's the funny thing. It wasn't just my stomach that was full. My heart was too. When I think back on that week now, I realize something else. That trip almost didn't happen. Not because of work, not because of the flight, not because of the planning, but because I almost talked myself out of going. I kept thinking, should I really leave for a whole week? Is this the right time? Maybe I should wait until life settles down. And if you're a parent, you probably understand that little voice. the one that makes you feel guilty for choosing something for yourself. Especially as moms, we spend so much of our lives making sure everyone else is okay first. Before I left, I talked to Alexis. I knew she was going to miss me. And if you know Alexis, you know how attached she is to me. I explained to her that just like me, she sometimes needs a break from her routines. Mommies and daddies need breaks too. We need time to rest, to reconnect with ourselves, to come home with a full cup again. She understood, and I'm so proud of her for that. I know it wasn't easy, so Alexis, if you ever listen to this one day, thank you for letting Mommy have that week. I love you more than you'll ever know. And I also want to thank Paul, because none of this would have been possible without him. While I was laughing with friends on the other side of the country, Paul was at the cottage with Alexis while she attended her summer camp each day. He made sure everything was taken care of and gave me the freedom to truly enjoy the trip without worrying about what was happening back home. Thank you, honey. I don't think we say thank you enough to the people who quietly carry things for us behind the scenes. And this trip reminded me how important that is. You know, I've been thinking a lot about the word support lately. In the last episode, I talked about building a business that supports your life. But this trip reminded me that people support our lives too. Friends, family, partners. Sometimes rebuilding differently isn't about becoming stronger. Sometimes it's about realizing you were never meant to carry everything by yourself. Sometimes it's about allowing the people who love you to carry you for a little while instead. That's not something that has always come naturally to me. Growing up, and then later as a wife, a mom, and a business owner, I became very comfortable being the one taking care of everyone else, making sure everyone else was okay, carrying the mental load, planning, organizing, helping. But this year, and especially this trip, taught me something I'm still learning. For so long, I thought taking care of myself meant taking something away from the people I love. This trip reminded me that sometimes taking care of yourself allows you to come back and love them even better. Not because you love them more, but because you've remembered how to take care of yourself too. Yemi and Lily cared for me. Paul made it possible for me to truly step away. Alexis did something that wasn't easy for her, and I'll always be proud of how brave she was. And somewhere in the middle of all that, I realized something. Love isn't just something we give. It's something we have to be willing to receive. I think that's part of rebuilding differently too. So what does rebuilding differently actually look like? Honestly, I'm still figuring that out. I don't have a 5-step plan. I don't have all the answers. I think rebuilding is a lot less dramatic than we imagine. It's usually made up of small decisions, choosing rest instead of pushing through, calling a friend instead of saying, I'm too busy, protecting time with the people you love, letting go of the idea that your worth is measured by how productive you are. And maybe that's been one of the biggest lessons for me this year. For a long time, I measured a good day by how much I got done, how many emails I answered, how many orders I packed, how many things I checked off my list. But when I think back on Vancouver, I don't remember checking anything off a list. I remember sitting around that dinner table. I remember walking along the waterfront. I remember laughing until my cheeks hurt. I remember conversations that reminded me who I am outside of work. Those are the moments that stayed with me, not because they were extraordinary, but because they reminded me what an ordinary, meaningful life can look like. I don't think rebuilding differently means changing everything overnight. I think it means paying closer attention to what fills your life and having the courage to let go of the things that quietly empty it. For me, I want to build a business I'm proud of. I also want to build a life I'm proud of. A life where friendships don't get pushed aside for someday. A life where family comes first. A life with space to rest, to laugh, travel and be present, because at the end of the day, I don't think success is just about what we've built. I think it's also about the life we've built around it. And maybe that's what rebuilding differently means to me. As we wrap up season 2, I've been thinking about where this season began. When I sat down to record the first episode, I honestly didn't know where these conversations would take us. I thought we would mostly be talking about business. Instead, we ended up talking about something much bigger. We talked about resilience, motherhood, exhaustion, letting go, rest, friendship, identity, reinvention, and what it really means to build a life that feels like your own. Looking back, I don't think this season changed because I planned it that way. I think it changed because I did. I thought I was rebuilding my business, but somewhere along the way, I realized I was rebuilding my life. And I'm so grateful I had this podcast as a place to share that journey with you. Season 2 almost didn't happen. There were moments when I wasn't sure I had the energy, the clarity, or even the words to continue. But now that we've reached the end of this season, I'm so glad it did, because these conversations gave me space to be honest, to reflect, to make sense of what I was experiencing, and hopefully they gave you some space to reflect on your own life too. Thank you for showing up every other week. Thank you for listening, for sending messages, for leaving comments, for sharing your stories with me. Some of you have been here since the very first episode. Some of you found the podcast this season, and some of you may be listening for the first time today. Wherever you join me, I'm so grateful you're here. Time is one of the most valuable things we have, and the fact that you chose to spend some of yours listening to this podcast is something I will never take for granted. If this podcast has encouraged you, made you think differently, or simply kept you company during a walk, a drive, your workday, or a difficult season, would you take a moment to leave a review wherever you're listening? Your review helps more people discover the podcast. But beyond that, it allows me to hear what these conversations have meant to you. I read every message, every comment, and every review. They mean more to me than you know. You can also share this episode with someone who may need to hear it. Sometimes one honest conversation can make someone feel a little less alone. And that has always been one of my greatest hopes for this podcast. To everyone who has quietly supported me behind the scenes, thank you. And to you listening right now, thank you for allowing me to be part of your journey, and thank you for being a part of mine. I don't know exactly what this next chapter will look like, but for the first time in a long time, I'm excited to find out. Wherever life takes us next, I hope we both keep choosing what matters most. More laughter, connection, rest, meaningful work, time with the people we love, and more moments that remind us we are not here simply to be productive. We are here to live. I hope you keep building a business that supports your life, but even more than that, I hope you build a life you're excited to wake up to. A life filled with meaningful relationships, meaningful work, and moments you'll remember long after the to-do list has been forgotten. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And until I see you again, take good care of yourself. I'll see you again soon.